Google is being sued for $2.5 decillion. That is probably a number you didn't even think existed. Like, that's more than a gazillion dollars. That's more than a more billion dollars. Like, this is an unfathomable number they are being sued for by Russia. To help put it in perspective, here's Decillion compared to others that you've heard before, such as thousand, million, billion, or even trillion. And you can see trillion's not even halfway there. It doesn't even make a dent. It's estimated that the entire global GDP is 100 trillion, which is like 0.0000001% of what Google is being sued for by Russia. To put it in even more simple terms, 2.5 decillion is almost as many pounds as your mother weighs. It is crazy what they are trying to achieve with this lawsuit here. Shooting for the stars doesn't even cover it. You couldn't sell the Earth for $2.5 decillion to aliens. It's not even worth that much. If you took every dollar, every form of currency ever made throughout the history of our species, it wouldn't even come close to 1 decillion. I cannot stress enough just how absurd this number is. Like, Dr. Evil wouldn't even go for this. This is so far into the realm of lunacy that I don't think there's a single made-up villain who would even try this. At this point, it'd be like a fucking Phineas and Ferb character suing for infinity money. The lawsuit is over YouTube banning Russian media networks. Like, they banned a ton of Russian accounts and accounts associated with, like, the Kremlin and all of that. And the fine arises from Google's failure to comply with previous court orders mandating the reinstatement of these Russian media accounts on YouTube. The court warned Google that non-compliance would lead to compounding fines with no ceiling on the amount, starting at 100,000 rubles daily, and the fines doubling every week until the channels are restored. This is what it feels like to play Magic the Gathering with someone doing doubling season token shenanigans. Like, this is just fucking stupid. The fines doubling every week? It's like a RuneScape scam. What the fuck? What incarnation? So, fundamentally, YouTube had banned a lot of Russian media accounts and accounts associated with the Kremlin and all of that. And Google has repeatedly cited sanctions compliance as the justification for suspending content from the channels, including high-profile networks like Sargrad TV and RIA Fan. They argued that the media entities involved were under U.S. sanctions imposed in response to Russia's geopolitical actions since 2014. So fundamentally, Google is saying, hey, we had to do this because of these issues and these sanctions. Then in 2022, following the invasion of Ukraine, the subsidiary of Google that was operating in the region declared bankruptcy, and Moscow had seized more than 100 million from the entity. According to The Telegraph, Google said Russia handed the assets to sanctioned TV channels including Sargrad, and that they seized more than 100 million of Google Russia's assets, even though the amount purportedly due under the judgment at the time was less than 12.5 million. So this has just been a back and forth butt fucking for quite some time now between Russia and Google. Now, Google in its latest earnings statement said, "We do not believe these ongoing legal matters will have a material adverse effect." To me, that sounds like they're saying, there's a lot of words here and we're not reading them. They're just going to ignore it. They're not even going to play ball with it for even a second. They're not entertaining the idea of a $2.5 decillion fine. They're just plugging their ears to it. Google has almost entirely ceased operations in Russia already. Like, they've almost fully pulled out from what I can tell. So it seems like they're just going to pretend that, you know, the tooth fairy's not real here and just not think about it. So this has been an ongoing battle here between Russia and Google, and this is just the most recent development in the anime. I don't think there's a single world where anyone actually looks at that number and takes it seriously. 2.5 decillion is comically large. There's not even that much sand on the planet. There are 7.5 sextillion grains of sand, and that doesn't even make a dent into 1 decillion. There is nothing on this planet that exists in that quantity, except maybe atoms. I think atoms is like 10 to the power of 50. Now, I can't imagine they're actually stupid enough to think that Google is somehow going to poop this shit out, 2.5 decillion anythings at all. That's impossible. I think this is just like a desperate Hail Mary to get some kind of money from it, like some kind of big fine from all of this. So they're just letting this number be as outrageous as possible. And they are trying to enforce these fines in other regions like South Africa, where they're trying to kind of come at Google from multiple angles, and then Google has been in response filing lawsuits to keep everything like localized to Russia. So it's been pretty messy. It has definitely been an interesting journey trying to get caught up on the lore of Google versus Russia. And I just had to dive in with both nuts here because 2.5 decillion, I had never even heard of the word decillion before. I thought that was just a made up term. And it's not. It's so crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. Of course, I'm just a clueless Neanderthal, so I have no idea if this lawsuit has any real meat behind it, if it holds water at all. I didn't pass the bar, I'm not a lawyer. But from my uneducated perspective, it just sounds so fucking stupid. To be coming at Google for this amount of money over YouTube accounts being banned, I think is ridiculous. It's not like those YouTube accounts were going to generate anywhere near that level of money. Realistically, all of the YouTube accounts put together probably wouldn't have generated anything even close to $100 million, even if they were operational for 100 years. Like, I just don't understand where this number's even coming from. Like, I understand it's like the compounding fines where it doubles every week, but it's just made up, pulled out of their ass arbitrary nonsense. Like, can any YouTuber do that? Like, oh, my YouTube account was unjustly terminated. Google owes me $1,000 per day that it stays down, and it's going to double every week. Well, based on what? Why? That's just a classic because I said so moment right there. I just don't see where they're getting this from. Like, why would it be doubling every week? Who made that rule? What referee came in there and threw the flag on the play saying that it needs to be doubled every week that they don't comply? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Those accounts were never going to generate anywhere near that level of money for a daily fine that would double every week. That's just that would never happen. So how the fuck can they possibly expect Google or any like reasonable judge to look at that and be like, oh no, that sounds about right? Again, I'm pretty sure it's just to be like intimidating and scary to settle for some kind of payment out of court, perhaps. But to me, this just doesn't seem to be like a lawsuit with a ton of punch behind it. Like, it really just doesn't seem like they have the strongest case to be coming at them for this amount of money. Now, it's worth mentioning, just like the end of a Marvel movie, it will return. This ticking time bomb hasn't stopped. It's still going, and it is still actively doubling. So it's 2.5 decillion now, but this might be the cheapest it'll ever be because in a month from now, a year from now, we may be looking at new numbers that are going to need to be invented to figure out how much Russia is trying to hit Google for. Anyway, though, I just had to talk about it a little bit because it was so crazy, and I was diving into it pretty deep this afternoon. That's really about it. So, yeah.